welcome back to the What They Said podcast, where we're going to be covering all things around brand fame, what it means, and how brands can actually show up in culture. I'm Lou Ali, and I'm the business director here at PrettyGreen, and today we're going to be recording our podcast live and direct from our very own PrettyGreen offices, which are in Old Street, so I apologise in advance if you can hear the odd bus or beep. Today we're going to be talking about something which most brands would love to achieve, but very few can actually clearly define, which is how to be premium. And more importantly, how to actually show up in culture in real terms rather than it just being something you say in a strategy deck. Now, today I have been joined by the wonderful Carly Burford from Peroni Nastro Azzurro, who has been at the centre of redefining that for their Only Peroni platform. Now, Carly and I actually go back many, many years. We started our careers together. So for the sake of our audience, it would be great if you could introduce yourself.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me. So I'm Carly Burford. I'm the Global Brand Director at Peroni Nastro Azzurro. I've been in role for about 18 months. And yeah, took the role because the brief sounded phenomenal and plays into everything that we're going to chat about today.
So let's start off with something quite simple. What does premium actually mean to you?
Oh, the $1 billion question. I think premium is an interesting word and an interesting concept because a lot of people just think premium means price or price positioning in market, and actually premium is the world that you build around your brand, right? So it's everything that it stands for. It's about meaning, it's about how it shows up, it's about occasions, it's about, if it's a beer, for example, how it's being poured. So for me, premium is about the experience that consumers feel when they interact with your brand. The glassware, the color of the liquid, and the brand had developed that. It wasn't an accident that you felt that when you drank it. So I think for me, premium is everything but the price. And then I think the price is actually the value that people perceive for your product because they feel something and they have meaning when they interact with it.
Yeah, of course. And obviously the new platform, Only Peroni, that feels really confident and distinctive. So how do you actually go about sort of finding a way to sort of define premium in a way that makes it feel undeniably yours?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think when Peroni was created, it was created in the 60s in Italy. And for many of us around the world, Italy already, conjures up these amazing sort of visuals in your mind of, high-end style, amazing coastlines, beautiful architecture and history. And when it was created, it was during the Dolce Vita era in the 60s, where sort of being bold, being creative, being innovative was at the forefront of what was happening in the country. And it was created to be an export brand that portrayed that to the rest of the world. And we haven't really lost that as a brand. So it was created to be this light, elegant, premium lager that everybody wanted to drink, and there wasn't much available on the market at the time, so it was really innovative and bold in its creation. But then I think over time, in the early 2000s, the brand became famous in the UK, and it really tapped into a cultural moment, which was, there was no style in beer. Yeah. Beer was very much beer. It was drunk by a certain type of person in a certain type of environment, and all of a sudden, beer was sexy. Beer was this sort of exclusive, stylish, I want to have that sort of liquid, and Peroni did that, and it bottled all of that Italian effortless style, and it brought it to the UK, and there was this role for it in market. And it was just phenomenal. So the brand just flew. And the 20s, my 20s, I was just talking about, that's when the brand was really, I just gave my age away as well there, didn't I? That's when the brand was having this moment in the UK. And it's because it stuck to its original positioning of, being bold, being creative and breaking category norms. Because I think if you have a look, or had a look, or even now, to be honest, at beer advertising, it's a bit of sea of sameness, a bit of, green glass lager, show the pour and show the landscape and show the provenance. But actually in the early 2000s, when this brand was born, it just broke all of those category norms. And then we lost our way again, I think.
Yeah.
I think the brand lost its way for many different reasons, right? There's lots that happens in culture, there's lots that happens in business. But what we tried to do with the new positioning and with Only Peroni is really go back to what it was that our brand stands for. And I hate the word heritage. I know there's a question coming up with the word heritage
we're going to talk about heritage, definitely.
But if you really go back to why your brand exists, and if suddenly your brand was to not be on the market anymore, what would people miss? Yeah. And actually style and bringing that sort of sense of style and elevated style to an occasion, it is why we exist, right? So when you have that Peroni, when you go in and you have that first pint or half pint, or you pick up the bottle, we want people to be feeling like that occasion is elevated, their natural style is elevated, because it just feels so right in your hand. And that's the beauty of Only Peroni. It's very, very distinct. It goes back to what it is that we stand for, which is effortless Italian style, but it does it in a way without being in your face. It does it in such a uniquely Italian way. You look at all of these beautiful Italian masterpieces, which obviously we bring to life in the ad. But the Italians, they don't, don't put that in your face. It's very much like so much effort has gone into this amazing dish, this pasta. So much effort has gone into this amazing, architecture. But it's just effortless in the way they portray it. And that's what we want to bottle up. We want to compare it to this Italian masterpiece that it was created in that way. But we want to do it in this effortless way that brings to life the brand. So that's the purpose.
Yeah, and I imagine it's really hard for like premium and iconic brands to really roll for times. As you say, you're an old heritage brand. Culture moves, people move. So at some point, as you say, you kind of lost your way. Obviously your role, you were brought in very much to sort of deliver on this new platform. So do you have any thoughts about what that moment was internally at Peroni, where they just it suddenly clicked with them? It's like, what we are doing is not working. Like, what was the pivotal point for them? Do you have any insights on that?
I think it's, a lot of the advertising that had happened previously, some of it was working in some countries, and obviously my role is global, so it's always difficult to pinpoint where it's working and where it's not working. But I think the collective idea or the collective strategy was, what is it that we want to stand for? Because we've gone from being very bold, very out of category, to very in category, very sort of same. And I know the work previous to me joining was a campaign called Live Every Moment. And actually, to be honest, at the time, post-COVID, people had been locked away in their houses and they did want to live every moment. So I think it was about, look, we can keep being trend-led and we can keep, moving the brand in these different directions. But what is it at its core that we stand for? Because that's how you build brands over time, is that you don't deviate from what it is that you are. And the things that remain true for this brand is we exist to bring effortless Italian style to the world. And if we're not portraying that, and if the brand doesn't have that strong position in the market, you're constantly going to be reinventing yourself. And for some brands, that's amazing. But as you said, for brands that have built such a strong legacy, let's say, in market, it's really, really important to hold on to what it is you stand for.
Absolutely. And obviously, like, the new campaign is beautiful. It's absolutely stunning. When you were working on it and building it, did you have any clear ideas about the elements that you really wanted to hold on to in terms of the heritage perspective of a brand?
Yeah, I think we did. I mean, as I said, like, heritage is... I remember a marketing director that I worked with way back when said the one thing you never want to be is a heritage brand, because already by saying heritage you're dated. And
I've really,
I know, I've held on to that, so I always cringe actually when I hear the word heritage. But maybe legacy's better, or maybe just But I think for me there's a difference between brands that change and move and are trend-led and are very short-term focused, and brands that have a longer vision and strategy on where their brands are going. And then lots of other Italian lagers have come into play, and suddenly what's our part of Italy? What do we stand for? What is it that why am I picking that beer over a different beer? So I knew coming in it was transformation.
Yeah.
The brief was about transformation. And the brief, iconic is another word that I know agencies probably hate, love and hate at the same time, because iconicity is built over time, right? So when you go in and say, make my brand iconic again, that's a really, really difficult ask. But it was essentially the brief. It was take what made us famous and create a platform that can stand the test of time and takes all of the components that we use to create this brand. So, you know, the craftsmanship of, you know, the Italian recipe. You know, I think the reason that Peroni was created, and it says this in the archives, was to create a masterpiece, an Italian masterpiece that could be exported around the world. So take all of those components, but make it modern. And there are elements that are timeless, and maybe timeless is better than heritage. There are elements that are absolutely timeless and beautiful about this brand. And there are elements that in order to stay contemporary and to actually hold true to that Dolce Vita era, you have to modernize. So for us, it was about how do we break category norms again, because that was definitely something I was interested in. How do we show up differently to other beer brands and lager brands, but actually how do we reclaim what is ours, which is bringing that style, bringing that sort of effortless, I would say, sexiness. I'm sure my superiors wouldn't like that word, but that sense of modernity and contemporary Italian urbanness into sort of, you know, this modern day, because otherwise we're just going to be talking to we're going to be talking to carbon copies of me, or versions of me that are you know, that drank it back in the day because it was really cool and stylish. When you're redefining your brand or repositioning, or even going back to what it is that your brand stands for, that you understand what your distinctive brand assets are, what you want to hold on to, what perhaps you have and you're not talking about, and then really decide what are those set of things that you want to bring to the fore for consumers. What is it that people think in the middle of the night if you wake them up, you know, Peroni, what do they think? And I think for us, what's so beautiful about Peroni Nastro Azzurro is that the Nastro Azzurro part means blue ribbon, and we don't do enough with that blue ribbon. So it is a distinctive brand asset, but it isn't something that we have been playing with or using in a way that we should. And actually, I think historically in some of the beautiful advertising of way back when, the blue ribbon was really, really important for the brand in Italy and the UK. So moving forward, it's definitely tapping into things that are really important to our brand so that people understand and can see them without seeing the name of the brand or the taste of the brand. It's really about how we can encompass everything.
Yeah. And obviously you and I, we know each other for quite a little while now, and you are famously not Italian.
I'm not, no.
So how was it sort of like interpreting that Italian style from a British perspective, and also then getting it to translate and work across multiple markets?
So, it's a
challenge.
Well, I think one of the most difficult things in my role was talking to the Italian team about Italian style, because I'm sure they were looking at me, you know, mum of two, like, you know, scraggly, turning up into the office thinking, this is interesting. But in the same way, if you, I don't know, sell baby food and don't have a child, or sell deodorant and aren't a 16-year-old boy, if you really understand, you know, what it is that makes your brand so special and what it is you want to hold on to, you can market and sell anything, right? I think it's about clarity. I think it's about vision. I think it's about being choiceful. So there's so many different versions of Italy we could pick to portray, right? It could be the terracotta roofs, it could be farm to table, it could be tradition, but it's not. And I think if you're really, really clear on what piece of Italy is it that we're bottling up, what is it in our liquid that is so special, what is it about style, because style can be interpreted in a million different ways, you know, for me, for you, and we're two British women, but for people in Romania, for people in Italy, for people in Australia, style means so many different things. But if you can coin what it is that Peroni can bring to the party or to the occasion, then I think that's the starting point of the battle. And then if you're really, really clear on how you want to portray that, and one of the things we did not want to do is make this brand a fashion brand, or make this brand a lifestyle brand that didn't connect with consumers, because I don't think in culture now that's what people are looking for. No. I think back in the early 2000s, or even when it was created in the 60s, modernity was such a big part of what people were driving after. So it was easy to sort of carve that up and show it. In the 2000s, you know, that whole, I want something more premium and exclusive to make me feel like I, you know, I'm a bit more premium myself. Yeah. That doesn't exist anymore. I think in certain aspects it does, but in, you know, being an individual, or, you know, with the generation rethinking thinking, they don't want us to tell them how to dress or how to look or where to go. So we didn't want to show this is style and this is what you should wear and this is what you should drink and this is where you should drink it. That was the absolute opposite of what we wanted to do. And the beauty with Only Peroni is that you were saying so much without saying anything at all. Yeah. You know, you were comparing amazing masterpieces that were born in Italy, and you were almost tongue-in-cheek underplaying or downplaying them, which is what the Italians do. It's very much like it's, you know, it's only a pasta dish. Yeah. I mean, it's just not. It's not, is it? It's amazing.
It's amazing.
It's only a fountain. It's the best fountain I've ever seen. And when
so
I'm
like blasé and nonchalant about it all.
Completely. And that's what Only Peroni does. It's this metaphor which compares these amazing masterpieces, but downplays it as it's only that. It's only that. And in that you're saying it's so much more. Yeah. And I think that's what I loved about the duality of the platform, is that it was so clever. And I think the virality that we'll have in the future is that we'll move into, I don't know, it's only a catch up with friends, and it'll be the absolute best catch up. And it doesn't need to be premium. It just needs to be for you, the best version of whatever that is, or, you know, only a concert, but actually it's your child's nativity or whatever it is at the time, you know. But of course,
I was thinking like, Taylor Swift.
Yeah, of course, or Taylor Swift, or Taylor Swift. But how do you make it personal, right? Like, and that's what we wanted. And then, you know, the comparison of only a beer, of course, in the same way that the car is only a car and the fountain is only a fountain, it's only a beer, but it is the best beer for that occasion, in that moment, for that person. And that's for me was really important, because I didn't want to be squabbling over what's the top the person is wearing, what's the location, because that felt too surface level, and we wanted meaning and depth.
Yeah, no, I think it totally does that, and it's so clever because, as you say, you can apply it to so many situations.
Right, so instead of being trend-led, you have a very, very strong master brand that stands for a particular set of values, which is driving meaning to consumers. But actually, how do you translate that into new innovative products for the future, right? So you lend all of that credibility of the brand. So we're bringing style, we're bringing, you know, class, elegance, effortlessness to the category. How do you flip that into a drink that isn't perhaps an alcoholic drink?
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously partnerships are a big part of that, and, you know, how you tap into pre-existing cultural moments. Like, we all know what it's like when a brand attempts to do it and it doesn't quite land. Like, my favorite example, which I always bang on about, is when Pepsi and Kendall Jenner try to sort of like hijack Black Lives Matter moment. Or you get it like right at the other end of the spectrum where, you know, you've got influencers that you can quite clearly tell they're just not using the product. So it's so important to make sure that when you're working across all the different marketing mix, finding new partners, trying to tap into new existing cultural conversations, what is it that you look to do to make sure that, you know, what the work you're doing is culturally credible and makes sense to your brand, but also to what's happening in the world? And what would be your advice to other brands when they're trying to attempt that?
I think culture, any level of conversation, influencer marketing, social first, should not be secondary. And I think so many big corporates in particular treat it as secondary or a bolt-on, or they'll give it to the most junior member in their team to
like
execute.
Fluff,
here we are.
Yeah.
We've got this big campaign, you know, we'll have the senior marketeers dealing with the strategy and the 30 seconds that will go on broadcast, and then actually let's bolt on social, or let's bolt on what it means in culture, or let's think about passion points as an afterthought. I am the absolute opposite, which is we have to start with how we are going to reach this particular group of people. And you know, my campaign, so only Peroni campaign has just gone live. I don't watch broadcast TV. I don't. I'll watch catch up, or I'll watch something, you know, a few days later. So we have to start approaching this differently, which is, where are our consumers? What are they watching? And how can we reach them with our message? So, and then I think it's about splitting it into a few different buckets. If you just want to do something tactical with an influencer, there is nothing wrong with that. But you will probably spend more in the long run in trying to convince them to stay loyal to your brand, right? Or it's just going to be a very difficult job because you'll constantly be chasing the next trend or the next celebrity or the next partnership. So I think the strategic partnerships are where you'll get the most value. And there's a debate actually happening in my team at the moment. We have one person who actually leads the Scuderia Ferrari partnership, who believes that partnerships at their core need to feel quite intrinsically linked. Yeah. And then we have someone else in my team who actually thinks some of these really bonkers partnerships, like Elf and Liquid Death, is like the best partnership ever, because it doesn't naturally fit together, but it causes so much of a stir out in the market. So it's what you need to be really, really clear on is, what are you trying to penetrate in culture? How is that partnership going to help you, but also help the other brand? Because if it always feels like one brand is getting the paycheck and the other brand is getting the brand building kudos, it's never ever going to work.
Balance,
has to have balance. And even if they feel like two very separate brands, like two things that do not go together, but actually at its core, intrinsically, they are about exporting Italian style and culture to the world, right?
Premium, iconic,
exactly,
heritage.
All of that goes together, right? And I think Scuderia Ferrari, everybody, regardless if you like Formula One, is a Ferrari fan. It's just everybody. I mean, the fact that we're both wearing this lovely, slightly red outfit, but like, it's a brand that has so much to offer in culture. And then our brand, who wants the same things from a sort of lifestyle perspective, and one's about performance and speed and the other one is about more, you know, effortless style, but the way in which they do it is so similar. It's this way of being, it's this attitude that you have. And if you can find a link between the partner and the brand and the attitude or the feeling or the positioning, or something is connected and you're after the same thing, then those are the brands that really feel like they click. And that feels like a shameless plug for the partnership we have, but genuinely, I think it's such a great one, right? And then you'll have other partnerships that perhaps strategically at that moment in time is the right thing for your brand to be doing. You know, if you want to tap into an audience and you don't have access to that audience, there is nothing wrong with partnering with somebody that, again, wants to partner with you. So this whole just pay, click, you know, like show the product, people see through it. It works, but people see through
Consumers are so quick to call it out nowadays.
Exactly, right? I think another one I worked on historically was when we were launching a big shampoo innovation when I worked at Unilever, and it was all about shine. It was phenomenal. It's an amazing product. And actually we were launching it in the UK, and actually the Brit Awards at the time were so you know, music in the UK was like coming back, almost coming back, having its moment again, and the sort of the night for the Brits to shine, and the, you know, the shine of the shampoo, and the fact that the brand was about stepping forward and putting yourself out, that feels so right, you know, and it just feels like it clicks. Whereas if you'd put a different brand in there, I don't know, pick another personal care or beauty brand, it would be jarring. It'd be like you're just doing that for a bit of a red carpet, picture. So I do think it's about going deeper than just, can we put our brand or our logo on this? Yeah.
I mean, obviously you've given us a couple of really great examples of brands that you've worked on with great partnerships. Can you talk about any other brands that you've just looked at, oh, that's a great partnership there, like, what made it work for you?
Oh, there's so many. There's so many that worked, there's so many that didn't work. I think if you look at again, if you break it down into, is this a big strategic partnership that's going to span many years and permeate many aspects of the strategy? I think the big partnerships, the big sports partnerships, the big Premier League partnerships or the rugby partnerships are phenomenal, not mentioning any competitors. But if you drill down a little bit into some of the smaller partnerships, I know that Kraft Heinz a good few years back, and they were doing it for very tactical PR talkability moments, but when they partnered mayonnaise with chocolate.
Yes.
And I can't remember the chocolate brand at the time, but like everyone was buzzing, like, would you ever put that with that? So I think, again, there are so many examples of, yes, this partnership is driving absolute massive mental availability and share of voice and growing both brands and putting that brand back on the map. And then you have these smaller brands that are doing these amazing tactical reactive partnerships that just seem to work. I think the ones for me that feel, as we said previously, that feel really wooden or feel really hollow are when, I don't know, perhaps an ITV star coming off one of these reality TV programs partners with a fast fashion brand. Like, that all feels for me really off.
Yeah. It feels very forced and synthetic, and it's not the thing that people are going to remember. Whereas, like, when you're talking about Peroni and Ferrari, that's something I think is going to really stick in people's minds. Going back to iconic, obviously we talked about Heinz, another classic heritage iconic brand there. But when brands are really trying to own that sort of platform of being iconic, being premium, they don't always get it right. So what, in your opinion, is it that leads to them not actually hitting the nail on the head with that?
So I think really understanding the conversations that are happening out in the country that you live, but in the world, right? I always say to my guys, like, if you want to understand what's happening in UK culture, watch Saturday Night TV. Like, that is what's happening. That is the majority of the great, British public. Same with, other countries. Like, really understand what the conversation is and where you have a right to participate. There's so many brands that get it wrong because they're like, right, it could be, I don't know, gay pride, it could be another really activist moment. But if your brand isn't bold and brave and activist in its approach, don't be part of that. There are other ways in which you can be purposeful. There are other ways in which your brand can show up that will feel authentic and feel like you can have, genuine conversations. So I think for me, brands that want to stand the test of time, again, need to go back to what it is that they stand for. What are their values? What's their, positioning ladder? What is their reason for existence? Their emotional benefit, their, functional benefit. We haven't really spoken about the stuff in the bottle, but what is the stuff in the bottle? Is it good and better than your competitors? What is it that's unique? What is it that you want to talk about? And then actually, is there a conversation in culture where those things meet? Being so single-minded in why you exist, really understanding if you didn't exist, what's the gap? What is the gap for that consumer? And we just did a big workshop, which was, if suddenly we disappeared from the market, what's the gap that exists within the category? And if you're really, really clear then on what part you want to own, and you're quite single-minded on how you want to put that forward, that's when you're going to succeed. I think the challenge will come, and again, even taking the Scuderia Ferrari partnership, I think in big established markets, it's phenomenal. But how we make that relevant for smaller markets, where culturally the conversation might not be as big, or, it could be that the sport or the drivers or the brand itself just doesn't have that same footprint, that becomes really difficult. So approaching your strategy, approaching the cultural conversations and again, being in the global role, keeping everybody really happy is quite difficult. But knowing, okay, this is my plan for a more nascent emerging market. This is my plan for the growing markets. But these are my groundbreaking plans, perhaps, for markets that are a bit more established and need a bit more of a push.
Yeah, and if you're starting with a very simple foundation, it should all stem from that quite naturally. I think often brands are just they're moving so fast, they want to just slap their name on top of everything, and it doesn't always work at all. So, I think we've given some great examples there of how it does work. So when people look at the evolution of Peroni a decade on from now. What do you hope they're going to say about the brand's journey and your chapter in it?
Genuinely, I don't want to, I want transformation in terms of how we're currently operating. And what I mean by that is we're sort of half in, half out. We want to transform. We want to be part of the category. We, you know, I want us to be brave and bold. Yeah. And I want that brave and bold, creative thought leadership back to our roots of being bold, innovative, how we were born. I want that to come to life. And I want that to be what sets us up for the next 10 years. So if we can achieve that with this positioning, if we can go back to, you know, the strength that we had in the UK in the early 2000s, but we can broaden that out across markets, because it's no good just being famous in one or two markets, right? You want that sort of global footprint. But if we can be really, really clear on what makes us distinctive, if we can be really, really clear on what sets us apart from our competitors, and you can explain that to your partner or your nan or somebody in an elevator in 10 seconds, I think we've won. I think if we're doing this dance back and forward on, you know, what it is we stand for and where we're going, and no one can quite put their finger on our existence, then I think we've failed. So for me, it's about long-term brand building, which in turn should, you know, lead to long-term brand success and commercial success.
Yeah. Well, you've already made a great start in doing that. So I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. So let's end on, for the marketers listening, whether they work in premium brands or not, what's one piece of advice that you would give to other marketers, you know, things that you've learned earlier from your journey around building brands that feel genuinely human?
For me, what I've held on to over the last 18 months is being bold and brave. And I think that's a really, really difficult ask sometimes in certain companies. And I've been lucky enough to have some leaders in my business that have believed in that. But I think really good creative, really good bold strategy can often be killed. Yeah. And I think for people out, if you really understand what it is you're trying to achieve, I think if you have a really, really good agency partner, I think if you have real clarity on the vision and where you're going, hold on to that. Yeah. And that feels really, really uncomfortable. But I think that's probably my advice, which is like, be really, really single-minded on where you're going, what you're doing, what your strategy is. Be visionary and bold and brave in how you bring it to life. And just have a bit of fun with it as well. It gets really, really heavy. And I think in our industry, we're very lucky to live, you know, work and live in an industry where it's fun, right?
It's
like it's a
really,
job
really,
it's a really great job, but it feels heavy sometimes, yeah. Right? It feels really heavy, and you get bogged down into this, oh, you know, we've got to, you know, keep this person happy, keep that person happy, and you end up with this Frankenstein strategy that in the end you're creating wallpaper. So I think for me it's, or what I say with my team, it's like, would a competitor let this leave the door? Number one, like, is it amazing? Like, is the quality of this like absolutely amazing? Is the strategy bang on? And then second to that, is it worth, you know, falling or dying on your sword for? And if the answer is yes, and sometimes it is, right? Yeah. Even though it's just beer or it's just whatever, only beer, whatever your category is, I do think it's like, have a bit of fun with it, but be courageous.
Yeah. No, it's a lovely note to end on. I love the idea of people being bolder and more courageous. And again, sort of like just underlying all of simplicity, get down to your roots and remember what you stand for while you're here. So thank you so much, Carly, for joining us today. That was a lovely conversation, and I feel like we've given the audience loads to take away from it.
Brilliant.
And thank you, dear listener, for your time and listening to our podcast today. I hope you really enjoyed the episode. If you did, please do make sure you subscribe and share it with someone else who you think might find it insightful. And then until next time, bye.